so what I'm going to start off as, what should I get to eat?
This is really how you want to start this, huh?
Yeah, that's how I want
Okay, chicken nugget.
Chicken nugget?
Chicken nugget.
Hamburger.
Hamburger.
Yeah, so that's it. That was the intro, huh?
That was a good podcast. Good podcast.
That was the whole introduction. All right.
Is this a podcast or is this a video?
So
or a video podcast?
Video podcast is the format I want to use for a little while.
Okay.
Because I honestly think that having a visual while listening to audio is fine, but like it's such a good medium because like we could be talking about anything and there's still something to look at on screen, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Not to mention, I mean, if you get YouTube Premium, that thing's pretty much a podcast generator at that point.
You could fall asleep to that, honestly.
Oh,
this, I guess.
That's what I need.
Don't matter.
Crap. Be right back. I'm not going to go far. I'm just going out my bed and grab my charger.
Ah.
Chris, do you not have your audio booth set up? Didn't even put up some foam.
That he doesn't prepare his own audio booth like the rest of us.
Look, I'm back. See? Wasn't that long. Not even a minute.
Well, this is it. This is the world's worst introduction to anything ever. So let's talk about Destiny.
That is definitely not the worst.
Worst. Do we get a raid belt for world?
Do we get a raid belt?
World's worst.
Team went in the raid and like 130 hours later they just scrape out and Bungie's like, look guys, I don't know how you kept with it.
Yeah, no,
you deserve this.
We've done
you
last
deserve
before.
this.
We know how it feels.
What was our first Leviathan clear time? It was like
7 hours.
7 hours? Was it really?
7 hours over 4 days. Yeah.
7 hours over 4 days. I don't. Ugh.
Dogs.
Leviathan was a mess.
It was dogs for me that kept me. I think dogs kept a lot of people.
But you were there. Yeah. You were there for first weekend. We did it like probably 4 months later.
That's true. Dogs, I believe, in the team that I had, took us about 6 hours to complete. Everything else was fine. But I don't think we finished. I think we quit on dogs and then came back at a later time.
Yeah, I mean, and there's no shame in quitting an encounter early, but as long as it gets done at some point.
Yeah, I don't like. Why do you keep staring at? Lay down.
Welcome to.
So I guess to start the actual content, do we have like a solid question or like solid prompt?
My question, my prompt that I came into this whole concept is, it's a 3-part prompt. What did you think of the past year of Destiny? Where do you think the game stands right now, and what needs to change going into the next year?
Okay, so this is like a year 3 retrospective.
Yeah, just a retrospect. We're right on the cusp of Beyond Light. It's been a long time coming. Season 11 has dragged on for far too long.
Oh, what do you mean? 6 months is plenty of time. That's a well-regulated season.
I think now is the best time to sort of get together, recap, and talk about, how we felt about the past year.
Yeah, that's great. Since you know the most, do you want to do this first prompt 1, 2, 3, and
yes,
or do you want to do like all of us give our A, B, and C, and then we just go down the line?
I think we can do kind of round the circle and just segue where we can.
Okay.
Like starting off, Chris, how did you feel about the past year? Seasons 8, 9, 10, and 11.
So we went from, what was it, Shadowkeep to, what were the seasons?
Season of Undying, Season of Dawn, Season of Worthy, and then Season of Arrivals were the 4 seasons this year.
Okay, hold on. I have my memory. You know how shit this is.
Do you want to talk about it for a little while first?
You start off first while I look up the seasons and give my memory back.
Well, actually, the first season. Rewind over a year ago when Shadowkeep launched. I think
the seasons. What were the seasons? Like, sorry.
Undying, Dawn,
No, I mean like
the
number ones.
8, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah. All right.
So I not to cut you off, Joel, but I do want to say real quick, Season of the Undying, because it was the first time Bungie attempted the season structure. Like we had the annual pass in Forsaken, and that was sort of the same thing, but this was like, you'd play for 3 months. You'd play for 3 months, and then when you come back the next time, those things would be gone, and there would be like they had the whole evolving world concept, and they really ran with it, for better or for worse in some cases. But that first weekend when Vex were suddenly spawning everywhere was awesome.
Well, the coolest thing for me about Season of Arrivals, like going back for Retrospect, the coolest part for Season of Arrivals for me was just the visual impact it had on the world. That's not something I think we saw. Oh yeah, audio too, because you had the random Vex sounds, and you'd see the Vex kind of grids kind of just popping up randomly, and then all of a sudden Vex would be dropping, and there'd be a giant portal in the sky. I thought that was really... it was engaging when you were a player just driving on the moon and you could see a giant portal in the sky, and you drive over there and there's people just shooting Vex. It wasn't a complicated encounter. It was just pew pew, shoot Vex that drop down, and if you do it right, then a boss spawns. I thought that was a very simple but engaging way to introduce seasons as something that's part of the world, but not something that just blends into the background. Like, it definitely sticks out as this is not supposed to be here.
I will
if that
say,
makes sense.
I will say that it does. I will say though that I think as good as Season of the Undying was, like, I love Vex Offensive, I love the world events, I loved... Honestly, there's not a lot in Season of the Undying I didn't enjoy, but I feel like as a whole, Season of the Undying actually weakened what Shadowkeep was.
Yeah, I was about to bring that up. The line between Undying and Shadowkeep was unusually thin, because the raid was also Vex themed, and I don't know if this was just like a thematic thing for me, but the fact that both the raid and the seasonal content had you going to some part of the Black Garden made all the quests feel really samey. And I don't know if that's to be with their like unified narrative. If that was the case, then I'm completely cool with it. But the problem I had was it just felt... It felt like a subsection of the raid, like bonus lore almost, as weird as that sounds.
For sure.
Chris, did you play that much Vex Offensive?
Vex Offensive? In the first couple weeks, yeah. I believe Andrew and I kind of grouped up and we played a lot of it.
We definitely did. I think we did 2 or 3 when the Undying Mind was live as well.
Yeah.
The boss change.
So actually, as far as narrative goes, I think that was a great touch. I think that the transition from going against that 1 Minotaur to the Undying Mind, and like, it wasn't as climactic or anything, but the concept of like, we're pulling the Undying Mind out of timelines and killing it as much as we can till it can't be traced anywhere. I think that's awesome.
Was that season?
Yeah, that was the end of Undying, and like the Undying Mind was only up for like 3 weeks or something.
Because we were building that Vex portal in the tower.
I wish that Vex portal was still there.
And then we build it up, and then it's just gone. That's one thing that I had an issue with Destiny, with that season and a couple seasons, is that they do all this stuff. You do all this stuff to like gather materials and everything, and it's just like a community thing to build this thing over weeks, and then as soon as that season's done, it's gone, and you're like, what was the purpose of that? Like, I mean,
we feel that even as recently as like this season with the Warmind towers and the bunkers, unless it's IO where the whole destination is being removed, if you go to Earth, the towers are gone, the bunker's gone. The same is true for the moon. There's no traces of the previous season.
And I mean, I can slightly understand why they remove some of this stuff, because it's assets that are now in the game, and that's like assets that they could be using for other things, like how they're removing different destinations to build for like other stuff in Destiny, so that they don't have to make a Destiny 3. But at the same time, like I would like to see the bunkers still there, where you could still drop down and go see them. And because those were like vendors, those were vendors that you could access, and now that they're gone, you can't even access those vendors, and it was seasonal locked.
Yeah.
And there's part of me that's just like, cool. You had to play the season to get that stuff, and it's a way to show off, being like, hey, I'm a veteran of this game, and I played during this, and I have this specific loot that you won't be able to get. But at the same time, it's like, well, what about the shit that I didn't get as well? Like, I grinded, but I couldn't get it, and now I'm locked out of it. There's the two sides of it, but it is what it is. Wait, Arrivals did Arrivals really introduce the latest trace rifle?
Yeah.
Ruinous Effigy. Yeah.
Yeah, the one that's getting nerfed.
Is Arrivals the first?
Arrivals is this current season.
Okay, I was about to say.
You were thinking it showed up and
yeah, I'm like,
how long has this season been?
I'm like, whoa, this
feels like that.
Sworn.
It does.
No, but let me touch on Shadowkeep. As
yeah,
a whole,
yeah.
As a whole,
let's go back to Shadowkeep.
We're kind of flopping all over. But Shadowkeep, in my opinion, has been one of my favorite yearly seasonals. It in my, like, Forsaken and Shadowkeep are both very, very good ones, and I know Andrew prefers Forsaken.
Yeah, that is
and
true.
I just prefer Shadowkeep, because Shadowkeep introduces really more of what's going on with the darkness. And
so when you say good or better with Forsaken and Shadowkeep, do you mean that by like a gameplay standpoint? Is that a narrative thing? Is like, I get it, like when things are good, but when we say, this expansion was a good expansion, what metric are you grading that on?
I really enjoyed the Shadowkeep story. That being said, I don't think there was a lot that went into it. My favorite thing that really tied me over with Shadowkeep was the raid, and I know I'm probably one of the really only ones in the group that enjoys Garden, but I feel Garden is such a beautiful raid, and it's such a, like, the encounters are so, they're nice. The only problem with Garden is the final boss, right? The final boss, the mechanics of the final boss of Garden is very, very picky. Like,
it's buggy.
You have to get it right for it to work, and it's possible to get to work, but it's difficult. You have to have a very, very well coordinated team to get it done, and even then, it's still buggy.
I heard one comparison of the Garden boss fight that I thought was incredibly accurate, and it was someone saying that the Garden boss fight is like the Gauntlet encounter from Leviathan with a DPS phase, and that honestly feels incredibly accurate.
Yeah, like one mistake, whether that's a glitch in the game or someone making a wrong move, and that run is just destroyed.
Yeah.
And there's just so many little things that you're relying on the game to function properly, which I feel like that's a given, but sometimes it doesn't do that. And with Garden, there's just a lot happening in that final boss that does not feel clean.
Yeah.
So for Shadowkeep, Chris, for Shadowkeep, you enjoyed like the content and the story. It was kind of a 1-2 combo. How how did you feel about nightmare hunts? Because this is something that I feel like people who enjoyed Shadowkeep never touch up on.
Nightmare hunts are a tricky one. So it's a cool idea. Don't get me wrong. So Nightmare hunts is a very cool idea. It just gives the like the bosses a little more of a incentive to go after, but at the same time it's I personally, I'm very iffy on it. I don't really do it. I did it when it first came out, and with a lot of seasons in Destiny, it's like cool. This stuff looks really cool at the beginning, and then after a couple weeks, you're like, this shit's really fucking repetitive, and it's like I lose interest in that repetitiveness. That it's like it's a cool idea, but after you've done it and everything, it's just there. And you know, the only reason why you'd go after it is if you don't have the loot that it drops, or you're trying to help a teammate.
Yeah.
I
will say, because you know, I do a lot of title chasing. I really enjoy grinding for
How
those.
many titles do you have? Just to clarify.
8 or 9, I think.
8 or 9.
I just got Forerunner. I'm 2 triumphs away from 2020, which I know I'm late on, but I haven't been playing for about a month.
You didn't miss much.
Hard to say. If I hadn't hopped on, I would have missed Forerunner. But those time trials for nightmare hunts on Master, those are asinine. You have to finish them in like 8 minutes without dying.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think I've I learned, so I think it was for the 2020 Triumph. I had to run a nightmare hunt, and that was the first time I learned that nightmare hunts were match made on certain difficulties.
Yeah.
And that probably tells you how much I've engaged with that content. Like I personally I didn't get much out of them.
Yeah, I mean, they play a little bit similar to like quick match-made story missions, you know? They're real quick, they're real fast to the point, and then it's done. It doesn't really serve a long-term purpose. I think
so, like simplified strikes.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. It's a strike, but without any of the nuance to it. It's just point A to point B, go. Some of them are little fun references to the past, because, you know, like, you fight Skolas where Taniks was. No. You fight Taniks where Taniks was? So Skolas
I could
and
not
Taniks,
tell you.
Skolas and Taniks are both part of a strike from D1. There are 2 halves of it. One part is on the catch, the other part is on the moon's surface. Where like you fight Crota in the room where his soul crystal was, you know?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that is really cool. I just feel like the moon wasn't a great choice for where to keep the nightmare hunts for the whole time, and I get that it was the gimmick of the moon, but it would have been cooler if we saw nightmare spread across the system over the seasons. Which is why it's weird to me that the seasons did end up being Vex-based for almost half the year.
That is kind of interesting, because when Season Undying, kind of just to bring us back full circle now that we kind of have an idea of how we felt about Shadowkeep. Is that, Andrew, do you have anything else to add on your Shadowkeep experience?
Pit of Heresy is the best dungeon in the game, save maybe Prophecy.
Well, there's not many to compare it to.
That's it.
I mean, we have 3 dungeons, right? And all 3 of them are very good dungeons.
I would like to posit that Niobe's Torment is a special form of dungeon. It's a little one-room dungeon I like to just call Purgatory.
Yeah, that's true. So with everybody's kind of opinions on Shadowkeep capped off there, and we're kind of going back to the seasons and how they all fit. Andrew, you said that it felt very Vex-based.
Yeah, I mean,
for the first few seasons.
Like Season of the Undying was the Undying Mind, and then that was all good. It wrapped up, and then we go to Mercury with Osiris and a Vex time machine. You know, like going through the corridors of time, you know, saving Saint 14, all very Vex-inspired activities. And I understand that it was to reintroduce the Red Legion for some reason, but it just felt so weird coming off of a Hive-centered expansion to go back to doing more Vex stuff.
See, the way I interpreted it, or no, I guess not interpreted, but the way I felt about it is I actually liked having the Vex stay from Undying to Dawn, because if you looked at the seasonal model, we got to see the enemy stories transition into one another.
Yes, and I honestly love that. That is one of my favorite things about the seasons.
So Vex Offensive, it was just the Vex, being annoying, popping up on different locations, fun. And after we kill the Undying Mind, we messed with the timeline, and we already know that Osiris is like, you know, yeah, he messes with Vex tech and Vex timeline stuff. And then we go to the Sundial on Mercury, and now we're fighting the Vex, and the Cabal are there. You know, and then that leads to Worthy. After we defeat the Cabal are now sending a giant ship, so we have to raise Rasputin. Like, the thing I will always appreciate about the seasonal model, you know, forget the feeling of missing out that a lot of people complain about, forget the seasonal pass model, forget bounty grinding. The fact that we have had a story from this point last year till, this summer, feel like a continuous narrative is something that I think Destiny has not had in a long time.
If ever, honestly.
Yeah.
This might be the first time we've ever had a completely continuous story.
Mm.
And I think you're right. I think that is one of the best things about the annual pass. And I don't think the annual pass has ever, or the season pass, I don't remember which this is. I don't think it's ever actually failed in any regards. I think that, like, I think we can talk about Season of the Worthy in a little bit, but I think that even though it was a weak point in the gameplay, I think narratively it was one of the most interesting seasons by far. Because it's not.
I can agree there.
Because it's not just about, like, everyone thought the season was about the Almighty coming and stopping it. But in reality, the season was about getting Rasputin and the Vanguard to work together again.
Yeah.
And, like, establishing trust where there previously wasn't. And that's a really strong narrative point that admittedly just kind of went right out the window when Rasputin died 5 minutes into Season of Arrivals.
That was a good cutscene.
But still, like, you know, now there's that potential for Rasputin to be a bigger character than he was, because previously he was a damsel in distress against a worm. Am I wrong?
No. I mean, if we want to bring Warmind into this conversation,
that's a whole other conversation.
So I guess that brings us up to Season of Dawn. Chris, did you play that much during Season of Dawn? I honestly don't remember. Like,
I don't remember what Season of Dawn is.
Season of the Dawn was the Sundial, the Fractalin,
Corridors of Time.
The Corridors of Time. Remember when you and I went through the corridors and got Bastion?
Yeah.
And I was in South Dakota, so we couldn't talk at the time.
What?
Yeah, that was in January. I was in South Dakota competing, and
right.
Chris and I ran the corridors and got Bastion, and we visited our own grave. And we couldn't talk about it.
Oh.
But that was I think that Corridors of Time was one of the coolest experiences to come out of the past year.
Corridors was a beautiful place to
like bar none, I think that was one of the coolest narrative moments. It, like, both missions were cool, going to see Saint and going to rescue him, and then going and unlocking the front door so he could walk out casually as if nothing had changed.
While he's just beating the shit out of a Vex.
Exactly.
Oh, that was so cool.
Exactly. Or, like, you know, when he, like, flies down with his shield and crushes whatever mind it was. I keep losing track of all these Vex minds.
There were a lot.
Narrative-wise, that was a great season. And I think that it was weighed down by the Fractalin in the tower, where you could go in and press X a couple times and get a god roll.
See, and I wanted to bring that up because I enjoyed just getting a bunch of weapons, which I know it's kind of like the parent handing the kid the box of cigarettes and just saying go to town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got so much of a good thing to where all of my Season of Dawn weapons by the end of it were fully masterworked, god tier perks, getting all funky with it. But the thing I realized during that season is, how good it feels to get that god roll, how nice it feels to get that perfect combination. It actually got me to get more into grinding out weapons and armor in the new
Sure.
I mean in with the new system of kind of get a frame, complete a bounty, turn in, get a weapon. Which
Sure.
I mean
I
that's
think
what
that
it was.
yeah, I think that was a great loop. I think that it was fine. I just think that part of the ending of that season is what weighed down Season of the Worthy so much. You know, we go from
because we went from
you go from spend a couple of minutes in the tower and you get tons of weapons to, hey, you got to play the game again, and remember, things hit harder than they used to.
go play a public event.
I have thoughts about that, actually.
So we can all conclude that Season of Dawn was a good season both narratively, and I thought the loot chase was good.
I think the loot chase was great. I think Sundial was one of the best activities in the game at the time. It was menagerie light. It was a lot of fun.
I didn't really touch on Sundial though. I didn't really go after it. Most of those type of shit, even with the bunkers and stuff, I'm like, this is cool and everything. I'm not really invested.
Got tired of fighting the Red Legion for the 12th time?
12th or 13th for sure. So capping off a Season of the Dawn conversation, the community effort to get Trials back.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah.
I think that was because Trials, we finished that community event 2 weeks before season changed.
Mm-hmm.
It was
wild.
It was close, and we got that Vidoc launched at 10 p.m. We hit the goal, and they were like, okay, here's what you've been working towards. Everyone go light the lighthouse. And then they brought back Trials. And then it didn't launch well. Welcome to Season of the Worthies conversation.
Okay, I want to bring up something about Trials before any of us talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
We all play on PS4.
Yes, yeah,
we do not experience cheaters, so any of the conversation of I went to Trials and I ran into 14 perfect aimers. That's not happening here. I've never experienced that.
I'm very thankful that I've never had to experience cheaters in Trials. Not because I feel like it would weigh down on the experience, but because I already hate Trials as it is. Because what was it? It's beginning of season 10. What was it? Trials, and everyone was running Hard Light, or was it everyone was running Suros?
It was Hard Light. I mean, Suros was part of it, but Hard Light was very, very powerful, where you could just hit a wall and have it bounce and just kill them instantly. Yep. Hard Light ruled Trials for a good month.
Yeah, and I've only gotten 4 wins max, so by no means am I good at Trials. I wouldn't claim to be anyways. But no, I just don't. I think that it's a fine pinnacle experience, because I think that's something that's been missing from the game. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe that. Is that better? I genuinely believe that Destiny's end game isn't as strong as it could be. I think that it feels like you're being ushered too quickly through the game itself to get to the end game, and then the end game is just, here you go. You need 3 friends or 6.
And we'll talk about that a little more later.
Yeah, we can.
With the new season. But in my opinion, no, I agree. Destiny has one of its Destiny's biggest problems is Endgame. It doesn't have a lot going for it.
No.
Like after a month or two, you got nothing. Like, and I know Bungie's trying really hard to space out their stuff so that there is an end game, but it's so hard to just stay interested in the season or the game when you just kind of have to grind out a lot of stuff to get to a certain place.
Yeah.
And it's like after a bit, it's like I don't feel like playing this. I have other games that I am more interested in, and that's why I get burnt out of Destiny so like easily, and I get burnt out of games pretty easily.
You do, to be fair.
But it's just Destiny's one of those games where I'll play it for a good couple months, enjoy it, and then be done with it until the next season.
And this season is my first season being burnt out of Destiny. So, like, if this is my first burnout, you know it's going to be a big one. But, like, Destiny is a game where I feel like when you're burnt out, you are burnt out.
It's not one of those games where you could be burnt out for, like, a couple days and then come back. No, that you're burnt out for, like, months.
Yeah, you need time to recharge.
And it sucks, but, I mean, you got to kind of also put it towards how long this season itself has been going. It's been going on for a very long time, and
no, we can talk about that in a little bit. Let's focus on Season of the Worthy a bit longer.
So, kind of going back to what you guys were saying about Trials and Endgame, one thing that I think tarnished Trials coming back was the fact that none of the weapons felt unique.
Yeah.
Which I play a decent amount of PvP. I think that's where I spend a majority of my time in Destiny. And the main thing that I guess made the Trials launch feel really lackluster was the fact that they were putting guns in the lighthouse that didn't really matter. Because you'd get there, you'd get a sniper, and you'd look at it and say, I have a revoker, why do I need this? And then you shard it. Like, there's no prestige to having the weapons outside of they have, moderately decent perks, but it wasn't something to go absolutely wild for. Whereas the end game for PvE, being raids and stuff, I think you can find some stuff. You can find weapons and armor and sparrows and ships all in there that are unique and actually are they're able to be pursued in a way that's the only place where you can get it. If I want a sniper with snapshot and killing wind, do I really want that at the end of the day if I play PvP nonstop? Probably not.
So my question is, do you think that well, first of all, do you think sunsetting weapons will affect Trials weapons going forward? Like, do you think they'll make it more valuable?
Absolutely. And I think sunsetting the weapons from Forsake, all the pinnacle weapons, I think has changed the meta in general. Even this season, you're seeing a lot less people use Mountaintop and Recluse, at least on console, because I think a lot of people are already getting they're getting used to just using non-pinnacle weapons. They're thinking, my Recluse isn't going to be relevant, so why don't I try, what is it, a Dead Orbit SMG that everybody's using right now?
Terminal Velocity.
Yeah, that one. But you're seeing a lot more adjustment in the PvP meta, it feels like. I mean, you still got auto rifles kicking it. You've got snipers just peeking down lanes. You got sword peeking. Like, those problems are still there. But as far as the loot diversity in PvP, is that how you put it? I've seen a lot more people kind of get funky with their builds.
I mean, I agree. I agree. And there's still weapons that you see in mass. You know, Fell Winters, any exotic that is
Gnawing
popular at the
Hunger.
time. Gnawing Hunger is in vogue right now, which is
Gnawing
good.
Hunger.
To be fair, Gnawing Hunger is a weapon that I wanted from season 6, but would never drop for me. So I'm happy that it's here.
You know what's a good weapon?
What?
And, it's been my favorite. I mean, you guys already know. My favorite weapon to use in Crucible is Galrins.
Oh yeah, you do love Galrins.
Its masterwork version is so fucking good. Like its curated version is so good. I mean, it was before. I mean, it got nerfed.
It's still good though.
But it's still a powerhouse.
Okay, but counterpoint, it's ugly.
I don't think so. I think it looks cool.
Actually, no, I'm with Chris on this one. I think like the rusted look with the hive gunk and like the hive runes lighting up as it glow as you shoot. I think those weapons are some of the best looking ones in the game.
I disagree.
Bane of Sorrows, in the same vein, Bane of Sorrows curated, which has like Outlaw and Dragonfly on it, 2 perks you never need on an LMG. That's an amazing curated role. It's just weird.
Yeah.
So I guess I love how we cover Trials as if it's separate from Season of the Worthy.
But that's the thing. Season of the Worthy is so devoid of anything at all that it might as well have been Season of Trials.
What, you didn't like Grandmaster Lost Sectors or whatever they're called?
Okay. So here are the things I'd like to cover from Season of the Worthy. Guardian Games was fun. And this isn't even just because like I'm a Titan main and we won. Guardian Games was actually a fun experience. Like I know a lot of people were just like, oh, it's just more bounties. Well, that's what every event is. Shut up.
I mean,
Hunter said we have it in the bag on the first day and then didn't show up for the rest of the time.
Every hunter said we've got this and decided not to show up because they thought everyone else had it.
Basically. I didn't care much for Guardian Games. That's just my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it was a cool event, but I didn't care for it.
That's fair.
I think it should be put in the record that Chris here plays Hunter. Just saying.
We should make sure that's noted.
Yep, just put that on the record.
Also in that season, Fourth Horseman returned, and that was pretty cool. I farmed that Catalyst and masterworked it in one day. It was not worth it because I don't use it anymore, but it was fun. The public event was okay. It was. I genuinely believe for the first half of the season it was fine. I think Seraph Towers was fun, and then they updated it without warning anyone that it was going to be updated, and it became a mess.
They just made it harder.
To this day, I am bitter that I couldn't get a good enough group of 9 people randomly coming to me so that I could get the only triumph I was missing to get that title.
Was it the title?
I'm even more bitter
that I got it.
Yes,
without doing it, or without.
That's what I was about to say. I'm even more bitter that Chris, you got that triumph and didn't get the title. Literally every other triumph on that was easy.
I got it,
but that one was just RNG. You had to hope people would do it right that time. It's just never make something that has some sort of value attached to it based on the ability of other random people. If it's people you can bring in, like if I could bring in 6 people to do Seraph Towers, I would have been like, yes, that is perfectly fair that I did not get it because I could not put a group of 6 people together. But because it was like, hey, you have to hope the right people walk into this area, that is very frustrating.
It is. I wasn't even trying to go for the triumph. I just fucking got it.
Aside from that, Seraph Towers, after they were revamped, were really, really bad. It was just a constant flood of enemies. It was hard to take care of both towers at once. No one was paying any attention to what they were supposed to be doing. It was a mess.
You want to know something about Seraph Towers?
What?
I actually enjoyed some aspects of it that I don't see a lot of people talk about, but The fact that the activities for the season, whether that's the master level master level lost sectors or the bunker busters, everything that you did with the bounties and everything, it got you materials that you could use that would give you perks that you could use at Seraph Tower. So anything you did made the encounter easier. Sure, the difficulty spike was still way too aggressive, in my opinion, but it was cool when, you know, you grinded for a bit and all of a sudden now you can summon a javelin under the tower and all. It's like I progressed far enough and it makes my job easier. You know,
I loved that, honestly. I didn't love that it was based on location. I was kind of frustrated because it would be like, you just spent 2 weeks grinding out Earth and powering up the Earth bunker, and now we're going to the moon, and none of your abilities transfer.
Yeah. Or so Io, where no one shows up.
Well, yeah, and I know that's balancing. It's like, if the abilities transferred, you'd get to the moon and everyone would already be just super swole. But it just feels so, like...
repetitive?
Repetitive, just like... It's disheartening to work towards something and have it kind of removed like that.
I want to see that kind of system implemented in an escalation protocol kind of situation, because having a public event as the main focus isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I definitely think requiring 9 people to be perfectly coordinated is a bit ridiculous.
Oh, a bit is a stretch.
Yeah, and with escalation protocol, you can have like 4 people and complete wave 7. We're all, you know, power boosted, but still, it's not complicated. There's like 3 mechanics that you need to be like knowledgeable of, and then you just go crazy. And I'd love to see that kind of upgrade system to where the more you spend in an activity, the easier it becomes to, you know, carry the team.
Yeah. I think that well, before we transition to Arrivals, I do want to touch on like the narrative elements of Worthy, both of them. But I think Arrivals did that pretty well too, with like, even though it was glitched at first, the if you get 15 motes and bank them, you get heavy crate for everyone. But like,
that was fun.
Yeah, you know, like Arrivals did that same upgrade system, not as effectively, but still in a fun way. And I think that's worth 1 merit point for that season. But
you get point.
Both narrative threads of Worthy, both the ignoring the Almighty. I think we can agree that
ignoring the giant satellite falling.
Well, no, I was gonna say I think we can all agree that aside from the fact that it was the catalyst of the season and a good a global event, at least I argue it was good. What do you guys think?
I think it took a little long, but
the destruction of the Almighty.
I think it was dumb.
Okay.
I think it was just prolonged, and literally it was hyped up just for it just to be shit.
What do you mean by that, though?
It was hyped up. The season literally based it off of it. Like it was.
See, but no, it didn't. It was the catalyst for the season. The season was based off of working with Rasputin. It was about reforging the bond between the Vanguard and Rasputin, and having a new ally to fight against the darkness when it finally rolls around. You know, like
from what I saw, it was
but that's the thing. The Almighty was a vessel for that.
It was to reforge Rasputin because the Almighty was crashing down, and we needed Rasputin's help to destroy it. And that just happened all throughout that whole season. And I've literally questioned the whole entire time when that was happening. I'm like, what the fuck ever happened with the Almighty shit? And we're like, oh,
you know, it takes a long time to go from the sun to Earth, right?
Yes, that is true. But at the same time, it was going on full-ass thrusters.
No, it wasn't. It was drifting.
I thought it was going on. I thought they destroyed the the thing and it made
They destroyed the steering, but it was just drifting towards Earth. They were waiting for it to get caught in orbit.
I don't know. It just seemed very lackluster to me.
I thought it was
fine.
cool in what it could imply for the future. Just the fact that we can do live events in the public space where everybody's seeing it at the exact same time.
Yeah,
that's not something, because everything's been instanced in Destiny for a long time, and it's been really stale.
That's kind of what I'm glad that the Almighty wasn't just a cutscene. You know, I'm glad it was something we were all there to witness. It just, my only complaint is it took like an hour and a half.
Yeah, but in that hour and a half, you got to see just, I mean, I was in the tower with you, and I remember we were just standing around, and every Guardian, you know, usually when you go to the tower, everybody kind of just runs off and does their own thing, but it was hilarious to see like a fully instanced tower.
The same way.
Everyone's just standing around, staring straight up at it, and people are like getting in different viewing spots. People are kind of like scouting out, and then when it passed by the tower, we all run up to like keep following it to see it crash down. It's those kind of things that, you know, it's not like world's first on a raid, you know, where streamers are going to be ahead of you, people are at different points, everyone is in the same place at the same time watching the same thing, and I think that's something. I mean, we're supposed to get a live event in Arrivals.
Are we?
And
I haven't heard anything about that.
There's an emblem, and the collector's edition gives you a code that gives you a timer that's counting down to November 5th. So,
where's it at? Like, do we have any other information?
We don't know where this event is. We don't know what it is.
So theoretically, we should hear something at reset.
Maybe.
Unless they just scrapped the idea at some point.
Part of me wants it to be like a Realm Reborn kind of thing, where you show up to
watch the
like Mercury or Titan and stuff, and enemies are just pouring out, like it's just chaos on each planet.
So
just
real
to have a send off.
Real quick for anyone who's unfamiliar with A Realm Reborn, when Final Fantasy XIV launched initially, it was a commercial and technical failure, and about a year later, under new management, the team decided to reboot the game completely under the 2.0 edition, which was called A Realm Reborn. In the weeks before A Realm Reborn launched, the devs started having fun and spawning large hordes of enemies in places as random as in the world to actual social hubs. Like, are you familiar with the Great Gobu Wall of Ul'dah? It's just a giant. It was a giant wall of players on mounts trying to protect a city, where enemies were spawning inside of it every day.
See, that's the kind of stuff I want to see from live events. I want one day for this live event, I want to just load into Titan and just see all is lost. Why we're leaving this planet in 5 days is because there's no hope.
Hey, yeah, no, I agree.
To touch on something, my cousin was, because he's getting back into Destiny a little bit, but he was talking about Asher, and he asked me, wait, does Asher die? And I'm like, yes. And he's like, where does this say that? And I'm like, I forgot, but I only remember you saying that he dies.
It doesn't say Asher dies. The only person who explicitly dies is Brother Vance.
Oh, I thought you said Asher died.
So what Asher does is he goes into the Pyramidion and destroys it from the inside, essentially, is what's implied.
And maybe become a Vex.
We're unclear. But but Brother Vance, as a lightless person, goes into the Infinite Forest and closes it of his own will and volition before he is stabbed by alternate versions of himself.
What?
It's the Infinite Forest, dude.
It's Vex magic. I don't know how to explain it.
It's a reality simulator built into Mercury.
And then
he did the right thing closing it.
Sloan gets a gold power armor and goes full Ripley on them and just charges at them, which is cool.
And Anna and Rasputin come back to the tower.
Cowards. So
At least she brought Rasputin with her.
I guess we're talking about the end of the season. Do we need to cover Arrivals? Because
The only thing I
I'm
will
gonna
say
be
about
honest,
Arrivals,
it's more of the same.
the only thing I will say about Arrivals is it does everything Worthy does, just better. But the gameplay loop was not designed to be this long, and we are really feeling it.
Yeah, and I think that honestly, like talking about it even is just like it's Gambit with no invaders in the public space, and occasionally there's champions.
I mean, it's Prophecy is one of the coolest things to come out of the season.
Prophecy is such a cool dungeon. And I love the armor from Prophecy.
Artistically, it's cool. I'm glad they gave it not a unique set, but I am glad they gave it the Eververse set, so there is something to pursue. I think that it mechanically is one of the most interesting encounters from each one, honestly. And I know it's just more Gambit, but like having to figure out where to stand and then figuring all the mechanics out on the fly, it's such a good experience.
That's why I like the blind run shit that we do. And if we're going off of Arrivals and kind of into what's going to happen into the next season.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk about Arrivals that much if we're being honest. Narratively, here were the big beats narratively, because Chris, I know you missed out on it. The Darkness came and showed up and just wanted to chat, which is something no one was prepared for. And Savathun spent 3 months trying to prevent us, well, actually 5, trying to prevent us from talking to the Darkness.
And we still don't know.
I actually have a theory about that. But the conduit that Savathun was using to prevent us from talking was Nokris. And at the end of the season, you actually go and you fight Nokris in the Court of Oryx as it's falling apart, and you kill him for it.
And we can talk about lore and
very
theories
cool mission
in a different recording, because I mean we're coming up on like an hour, and
I'll share my theory right at the end.
Yeah, so I guess the last thing I think we should touch on is we've talked about all the seasons, we've talked about Shadowkeep. Going into November 10th, what are you hoping is going to be there for you? Because right now we know there's going to be a raid, a strike, a new map, and the Cosmodrome, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like we don't know if there's a new activity. We've seen little.
We might know. There's the new hunts for the new season. There's new hunt activities, which I can only imagine is going to be a more refined form of a nightmare hunt. But which, if it is, honestly, that sounds exciting. Just thinking about it, taking something that we already talked about having been abandoned and refining it would be cool. But I hope that Europa has as many secrets as like the Dreadnought did. You know, I think that as good as Europa could be, or like any location in D2 has been, with the exception of the Dreaming City, which actually fits what I'm talking about, they all fall short in like everything is spelled out for you. I want a location that gave me like the sense of discovery that the Dreadnought and the Dreaming City did.
I was about to say, you mentioned the Dreadnought, but I know how many hours you've spent in the Dreaming City.
Yeah, and I think the Dreaming City does really good. There are secret bosses on the Dreaming City I haven't even figured out how to fight yet. Like there's like sometimes someone steals an orb, and if you put it in the right spot, an ogre spawns. Like what? And the Dreaming City, I could talk about that for hours.
I know.
But like the Dreadnought, like one puzzle I remember distinctly in the Dreadnought is this room where there's a bunch of worms, like little hive worm larvae. You have to stand in there until you get covered in their scent, and then you have to book it across a bunch of invisible platforms to get to a chest that is surrounded by immune thrall that are blind and can detect you by smell.
it was such a cool fucking thing. It was a
Yeah,
bitch and
but,
a half,
like-
but you had a minute to do it.
And nothing was spelled out for you. All you knew is if you stood in this room, you got a buff. And that kind of stuff is awesome. I think that if Europa has half of that, it's gonna be perfect.
Europa, I'm very much hoping for is going to be a great destination. My thing is, and as this could be just far fetched and whatever, and you already know how I feel about Steve and everything. But
Yeah,
bear with me. Just bear with me. Them bringing back the Cosmodrome must mean that they're lifting the restriction on going to it, like because it was quarantined because of the Siva. So I'd like to have a little bit of lore on how they contain the Siva and what's happened to it. I don't think that's a problem. I mean, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but I'd like to hear a little bit of what actually happened and how they contained the Siva, because the Siva just doesn't go away.
Well,
I mean,
how much of
Rasputin's on
Season
our
of the
side
Worthy
now.
did you play?
I don't remember.
So here's what I know. Fellwinter, one of the Iron Lords, was actually a resurrected version of a Exo that Rasputin created.
Yes.
And when Rasputin realized it wasn't the same guy, he got upset and baited the Iron Lords in with a trap.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Iron Lords first discovered Siva, it was like controllable and malleable, and they could use it to rebuild. But then when all the Iron Lords came to claim it, Rasputin let it go ballistic and kill them. And then Rasputin just, in sorrow, left it to its own devices and just abandoned it. But Siva never really had an outbreak. Rasputin just abandoned it while it was still in its frenzied state. With Rasputin back on our side, it's possible that all they had to do was ask him to retract it.
True.
That could be it.
So I hope it's not as simple as that. I really do hope we get to see some sort of Siva return later, because like with the new changes to how seasons work, having a Siva season where different enemy types are becoming frenzied would be awesome. But if we don't get that, we don't get that.
No, I love the Siva very, very much, and I really hope that I can see it again. I mean, we have, like, in this past season, I don't know if it's this past season or the season before, we got armor and stuff that literally, like, envelopes and armor that not depicted, but showed Siva type shit.
Yeah,
So
no, it wasn't even like a stray reference. It was literal Siva.
Yeah, no, the armor literally had Siva on it.
So, Andrew, you want Europa to be secret heavy like the Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Chris, you're wanting narrative relevance of the Cosmodrome.
Actually, that's actually a really big one.
No, I'm not downplaying it.
Right.
I mean,
He's totally
that's
right.
more story, and Chris, I can tell, is much more about the narrative in like the visual storytelling is what I'm picking up.
Oh, what gave you that impression?
Yeah,
Chris doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would read lore books.
No, not at all.
Why would I have to read Lord books when I have you to tell me about the lore?
Did you say Lord books? It's
go.
called the Bible.
I hate you.
So
I hate you so much.
The one thing that I want from this next season, and it's actually different from you too, so I'm really happy about that.
Oh, that's good.
Is that I want the season pass, or like the annual pass with all the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I want that to kind of like how the past seasons transition the story from this affects this, which affects this, which affects this. I want this season to focus on making Uldren the Hunter Vanguard. That's really all I want, is because they've reintroduced him after a year of him popping up in Christmas lore cards, and now he's a physical presence. He's a character with a name. He's called Crow now, and he's with Osiris, who we know is kind of a story-driving character. which, that I want from anything that happens this season. I want the story to be engaging, and I think the best way you can do that is by making Uldren a character that we care about more than some of us already do. I know there are some Uldren fan girls.
I'll just say real quick, because I know Chris is anti-Uldren. Are you still anti-Uldren, Chris?
Very, very much.
So, and you're staying away from anything spoilery, but in the Vidoc, when he's introduced by stabbing a knight to save Osiris, and it's in that moment that I can say with 100% certainty that is not Uldren Sov anymore, because Uldren hated Guardians. If a Guardian was about to die, he wouldn't move a muscle.
That's a good point.
That was the moment where I was like, you can no longer say that this man is the man who killed Cade 6. If he's defending Osiris, who is arguably the worst Guardian in history.
Okay, well, hold on a minute. we can have a full discussion on the lore, but I think what I was impressed this year by how the season pass built a narrative across a whole year instead of giving us a thing of content and then just dropping it.
Yep.
So I'm wanting them to do that this next season, but have a central main character of it being Uldren.
So, and I do agree with that, but can I share my little theory from earlier? Because it is actually relevant right here.
Yeah, and we're coming up on that 1 hour mark, so probably...
Yeah, so I think this is a good kind of thing to end on. In the Vidoc again, they said that over the next year, Savathun's going to be lining up dominoes, and at the end, that she's going to knock them all down, and that's going to escort us into year 5. Part of this season was us trying to fight Savathun in order to get to the darkness so the darkness could talk to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think she was slowing us down just so that Aramis could get to Europa first. I think that way it kept us occupied for a little longer so we weren't paying any attention to her.
And now that Aramis is there, now we have to deal with her for another year.
We have to deal with her, and we have to deal with Aramis so that we can get darkness in the first place.
Okay.
I'm still like it's still a fun thing to try to understand why Savathun's trying to keep us away from the darkness, because we don't know if Savathun's trying to do it in a malicious intent or trying to do it just so that we don't have we don't have the darkness to fight against her or stuff like that. It's a very, because don't get me wrong, Savathun's an evil little bitch.
You've never even met her.
But like the darkness is trying to team up with us, and we don't know why the darkness wants to team up with us. Because to be honest, Savathun and the darkness could be fighting for like the longest time, and if Savathun realized that her greatest enemy, which is probably us, teamed up with her second greatest enemy, the darkness, she would be fucked. So she could probably be trying to just get us away from the darkness so that we don't team up, so that we're not against her.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing at the end of Season of Arrivals was the darkness basically saying, like, come to Europa for new power. And it's implied that pyramids across the entire universe were talking to other species as well. You know? So it wasn't even like a coincidence that the Fallen happened to be on Europa. They were called there, just like us. So, also it sounds like Zavala is going to be sending us across the system to look for more pyramids. So,
I mean, and Eric's is returning, so that's going to be a fun thing to...
Year 4, Year of the Pyramid. Chinese Zodiac. Pyramid. 2021.
Yeah. So,
any Any final thoughts?
I think we did a pretty good evaluation of the season.
Yeah,
Or
I think that was a good recovery of last year. I mean, there's definitely intricacies we missed, but
that was a quick and rough in an hour.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we hit the broad strokes.
So, do we have any way of like closing up this video, or
no?
This is the first time we're doing this.
No,
we got no idea.
I don't know. This has been a good conversation, I would say. I think that this was fun from start to finish. I think it really boils down to like, comment, subscribe. You know?
Comment, subscribe.
And I got food. It's finally being delivered.
The bowl.
Are you for real?
Yes.
Did you order at the beginning of this?
Yes.
Incredible.
That is unreal.
It took almost an hour for my food to get here.
Well, you know, like, comment, subscribe. I think Joel and I have talked about doing some other Destiny-related projects that we're still working on.
Yeah, so if you find this video somewhere and you want to hear more from us, you want to see more content, probably just follow the breadcrumbs, and hopefully we'll have more content in the near future. I don't know. We're busy people.
Are we?
I think we can get some more stuff out there. If it's stuff we care about, I think we can make some time.
I'm sure that we would talk about other things other than Destiny, other games and shit that's going on.
Yeah, we'll talk about whatever we feel like. It's not always going to be Destiny. It's just going to be whatever.
Yeah. It's just currently Destiny's the hottest thing in our group at the moment.
So yeah, that's it. Thank you if you listen
End the
to
video.
all of this.
Cut it now. Cut it now.
Thanks.
Cut it now.
Cut it.
End it.
Cut it.
End it.
End it.
Kill it. Kill it.